Yeah, we're live, and I am even 6 minutes early. so you know it's a good night. Everything's working out just perfect. As you noticed from the thumbnail, I wanted to let you guys know I'll be going on playing in traffic with Lewis Lee. So I got my... There we go. Come on. Yeah, what's up? Nice photo. So we'll be doing that Thursday night. We're starting a little early. We're starting at 9 o'clock his time, which will be 6 o'clock my time, Pacific Standard. So make sure to check that out. And if things go well and I'm able to do it, we'll see. Hopefully I can stream that here while he's streaming it also, and we're going to do some double throwdown thing. I don't know. So I'm still learning all that. So that will be interesting. We could get all that done. Also, so thanks, Lewis, for inviting me. That would be cool. And hopefully Terry is going to be there as well. That will be great to have everybody there. And we got the last time Terry came out and we sat down and had dinner over here at Pietro's. I mean, I think we spent a couple of hours. It was awesome, because car guys, when they get together, just like us, when we all get together, it's just like, talk. Everybody's telling stories and lying about how fast they are and all that good stuff. So it's awesome. So, and I like Terry because he's an enthusiast and he's got a lot of cool projects that he's done and stuff too. So I like that. I like getting together with people and Uncle Squirrel. Whoa, what's going on? He's going off script. So hopefully you guys have checked out the video that I posted today comparing so the question is, do we really need big V8s anymore? And I think that the answer is, for everybody, certainly for me, yes, we do. And probably the bigger, the better. But the comparison was interesting. And I know that it's not as maybe modern as it could be. These are much older motors. And then now we have the, EcoBoost stuff. And so they're getting very, very good and especially with turbos, and especially with the control that they have over turbos with the factory stuff, they're getting very good at making these little motors think that they are a lot bigger, especially with what you can do to the boost curves from the factory. So if you have, let's say that I know on some of these modern cars, like my wife's car, it runs 20 pounds. So if you can run lots and lots of boost, you can get lots and lots of torque down low, and then you can always tailor it off. If you say, look, we don't need 20 pounds through the whole RPM range because then it's going to be making more power than we need. Then it makes 20 there, and then it tapers off down to 15 or 10 or whatever the number is. So you can make all of that happen, which is kind of cool. And the more that we get into that stuff, the more that they get really, really good at the programming and making. And if you look at modern engines compared to the Magnum and the 3800 that we tested, everything's obviously a lot better. I mean, we did the comparison between the 3800 and the 4200, and the 4200 I don't think is as good as an LV3 or something more modern. So the more powerful we get with the as the motors evolve, they get better and better. And then we add boost to that. And then we add the ability to control all that and direct injection and high static compression and the ability to run on multiple fuels and all that stuff. So what I'm wondering is we seem to be evolving in that direction. So are we going to get to the point where we won't have large displacement V8s anymore? We'll only have boosted, let's say medium displacement motors, and then eventually only small displacement motors with boost on them too. Or is all that going to be erased by electric motors before that even happens? It's an interesting thing. I hope that we continue with them and that they're necessary and I think that of anywhere, the United States is somewhere where the big motors would continue to survive, if only because the people that are here and the things that we do. If you take a look at the sales of trucks compared to cars, this is a truck country basically. And so guys like their trucks. They like big diesel engines. They like big naturally aspirated engines. Obviously, the 7.3 liter and the 6.6 were some of them that I mentioned. I mean, we've had V10s, we've had 8 liter stuff too. We've had all kinds of crazy stuff. So I think if anything here, we'll be more likely to have it where we've kind of embraced the bigger is better thing, whereas as opposed to other places in the world. But the one thing that's kind of made that happen in other places is the cost of fuel. So now we have rising fuel costs now. So if we get to the point where it'll be interesting to see if we get to the point where it's $4, $5, $6, $7 a gallon, which it can't go anywhere but up, I don't think. And to make it more in line with a lot of other places in the world, if gas prices get really high, that kind of makes people transition forcibly, so I think, unfortunately, to going with more fuel efficient motors. So that's my next question is, and this is an interesting one. When I was comparing the 3800 to the Magnum, obviously, again, two not ideal choices considering what's available now. You have a lot more efficient versions. But it got me thinking, well, if you have a naturally aspirated motor of a larger displacement that offers the torque that you want, it's going to have at least medium to high compression. If it's a direct injection motor, it's going to have very high compression. It's going to be 11-to-1 or more. And so it makes me wonder, is a factory forced induction motor, which is typically lower compression, and if it's smaller, will it be more fuel efficient in a steady state drive cycle kind of test compared to the slightly bigger motor that has higher compression? Let me know what you guys think. Let me know what you think, which one of those would be more fuel efficient. The nice thing, again, about modern electronics is that we can, they can, like we did with the Honda, with the VX, you can institute lean burn in them, and you can get really, and that becomes even less and less necessary, I think, with direct injection. But you can make them very, very fuel efficient. Obviously, they're doing cylinder delete now and making the big motor think and run, hopefully, like it's a small motor. I know early on they had lots of problems with that, but I think that they're better at it now. And I think that the things that happen with those are kind of age and mileage things, that it gets worse and worse as we get 100, 200, 300,000 miles on them. The systems, don't work as well because the lifters get gummed up and stuff. So I'm wondering, I haven't gone and looked and done any actual comparisons of the kinds of motors that would be equivalent in terms of, power curves, because it's the first time I've really done it from a dyno standpoint. But looking at modern stuff, it would be interesting to see which ones are rated at, better fuel economy on the steady state deal. Obviously, a guy has a big full-size 3500 truck and it's a dually and he's towing stuff with it. If he's really going after mileage, he's probably, and really towing stuff, he's probably going to have a turbo diesel in it. But if he's doing a gas engine, would he get better mileage cruising around steady state with a 5.3 or a 6.0 or 6.6 motor, or a turbo like the twin turbo EcoBoost stuff from Ford? So let me know what you guys think. I'm excited about doing the playing in traffic thing. I really liked how the thing that spurred all of this test on that I did with the 3800 versus the 5.9 liter is when I'm going through data, I'm looking for similarities. And on those two, we saw that they made basically the same peak power. And so what happens invariably is guys will get in, make comments and get in arguments about, this motor makes as much power as and then they choose whatever one that they want to target and say, look, mine makes as much power as yours. And the 3800 guy can say that about the Dodge Magnum. In fact, he can actually say, because it's rated at a higher power level, he actually makes more power technically. But when we tested them, they actually made very similar power. They made very similar horsepower, peak horsepower. But they did it at such radically different engine speeds that we saw huge differences in torque. And even when we tried to artificially enhance the torque production with the blower, which admittedly not as good of an example as a modern version with turbos, a turbo or twin turbos on it. But still, when we raised that up, it still didn't make the low speed power that the bigger displacement did. And then that's what got me thinking about, in that particular example, the 3800 is a low compression motor. Now, probably with a direct injection motor with forced induction on now in modern times, it would probably be higher than it was back then. It's not going to be 8 or 8.5 to 1. It's going to be higher than that. And so the cruise RP or the cruise mileage would be better with higher static compression. And now with variable cam timing, it can be even better. So there's lots of cool stuff that we get to enjoy now that we didn't have back then. But, let's face it, still guys are not going to wrecking yards and taking out LT motors and running them with direct injection with the factory electronics and stuff, because that's a lot harder to do. It's not impossible, because we ran the 383, albeit we did it with a Ford Racing controls pack designed for an LT1, and I had Eric and Ish at West Tech do all the work, so it made it a lot easier for me, actually. So it's not impossible, but you have to have pretty sharp guys that are able to do that. And the average guy is not going to do that. The average guy that can go take a motor out and swap it in, most of them are going to be doing carbureted things. The ones that are going to be doing fuel injected things, luckily for us, there's a lot of information out there on YouTube and on the internet to say, okay, look here, when you put this motor in with this harness, here's what you need to hook up, and here's how you can tune it. Matt over at Sloppy has lots of tunes for factory ECUs, which is awesome, because that would be what a guy would get. He would get the cheapest thing that he could get, and he's not going to go get a $300 motor and a turbo and then get a $1,000 or $1,500 or $2,000 standalone management system. He's just going to get the one either that he already has in his truck or that he gets from the wrecking yard and swaps the whole thing in, so he knows which power and ground wires to hook up. It's a lot more involved than that, obviously, but you get the idea. And then that way he can tune the factory ECU. So there's a lot of cool stuff, but I think we're still a ways away from guys doing lots of swaps with the drive-by-wire, variable cam timing, direct injection, again, because of the things that they need to do, even with the fuel system, becomes problematic. But in hearing myself say that, guys said that about fuel injection too. Well, how are you going to do that? How are you going to put one of these high pressure fuel pumps in the tank? That's just crazy talk. How are we not going to have the fuel pump on the side of the block? The 6 or 7 pound Holly blue pump or red pump or the mechanical pump that's turned over by the little oblong disc on the front of the camshaft. That's just, people back then were thinking that, without carburetors, it's the end of performance as we know it, but it isn't. And so maybe we'll get into that part of it too, where that will be wrecking yard stuff. I'm hoping that guys will continue to do that. I'm just wondering if all of that stuff will be replaced by something else before they get to do that. Or I think what we'll see before that happens is, like, I would like to go get an L83, but then I would probably convert it to port injection. Unless I had, I have that controls pack so I can run it. But if I were to put it in a motor, I think that I would just be more likely to run it with port injection, because there are conversion manifolds for that. So let's talk a little bit about, let me know what you guys think. What do you guys think? First of all, can forced induction replace displacement? So can we take a 3-liter or 4-liter motor and make the power that you can reliably and the torque with a 6-liter motor or a 7-liter motor for towing applications? We'll talk about gas motors, obviously, and not diesel motors. So can that be done? Is that a real thing? Is that something that only the OEMs can do, or can regular guys do that? Like, I get questions all the time from guys asking about LS stuff. Well, if I have a 4.8, can I run a 4.8 with a turbo on it and have that be my tow motor, obviously, instead of a 6-liter or a 6.2? And in that case, I think definitely yes. I mean, guys, if you run 7 pounds on your 4.8, it's going to be a lot better than a 6-liter. It's going to make a lot more power. It's going to make a lot more torque. Plus, it'll be turbocharged, which just makes it even more awesomer. So we know that that's possible. But what do you think? Do you think that that's possible? Is that coming? Is that the direction that we're going in? And is it a viable deal, or will we always have like full-size trucks with big motor options in them? And then the other thing to think about is, even if you had a 3.5-liter V8 that or V6 even, that made 6-liter V8 power, is that going to satisfy the buying public, or is the buying public only big V8 guys? Just let me know what you guys think, and we can get into that discussion as well. So let's see what you guys got going on. Let's see. Toyota refuses to make electric cars. Edelbrock Performer, long tube headers on it. So Noodles, you have E85 capable vehicles, but no E85 stations. That's only one of the two things that you need there, right? Yell Tom Automotive. I'm not ever going to do a tuning class because I'm not a tuner. So I've made that point perfectly clear lots and lots of times. I'd rather make power NA than need boost to make the same power, more moving parts to replace, more money. So Noodles, you're an EcoBoost guy then, huh? You think that that's a good choice? 4 liters is plenty with a pile of boost. Well, DFA, one of the interesting reads is if you go back and read the turbo era Formula One books, you'll see that that's one of the ways that they tried to get rid of the turbo cars is they kept limiting the amount of fuel that they would allow them to use during the race because they wanted the naturally aspirated motors, which made quite a bit less power than the turbo stuff did. They were limiting boost. They were also limiting fuel. So they wanted to force the guys out of making the turbos, and eventually they just banned them so that they couldn't use them anymore. But every time that they did that, and they said, "Oh no, this is going to be the end of the turbo era," but each year they kept making them better and better and made them more fuel efficient, and they still made more power than the Cosworths did. It's a really interesting read about the politics and all the stuff that was going on there. So the EcoBoost would be good if they didn't use cheap turbos. So Ford is using cheap turbos. How about a 351 performing like a 460 torque wise? It's definitely gonna need some boost. When do you think the free valve will make it into drag racing? I'm surprised that somebody hasn't applied that yet. Any chance you'll do a GM LFX V6 Camaro engine? I think that the next V6 that I would look at would be an LV3, I think. Craig wants to do a small block 4.4 liter with a 3-inch stroke. So how small are those bores going to be? That's going to be like the L99 is like that. The L99 is a 4.3 liter already, so you can do that, but it's such a small bore. But you can easily make 500 or 600 horsepower with turbos and 25 to 30 miles per gallon. I honestly think that you could do that with a 4.8. I think a turbo 4.8 probably would do. I know that it would do 25, especially in a light car, and it might do 30. I agree. The cars are better, Paul. The cars are better than they ever have been. They're faster and handle better and are safer. The one thing I don't like is they are heavier. That's one thing. If you get in a car like the Omni or even my '88 Mustang, any of those cars feel like featherweights, especially like the Civic VX that I drove. It felt like you could pick it up compared to modern cars. But modern cars are a lot safer, though. Can somebody tell me why are people stealing catalytic converters because they're selling the converters, or are they just doing it for the precious metals inside of it? So Mike's been triggered for tonight. DFA, I agree that this is a very good time. I remember going to the wrecking yard back when I was young, when I had my Camaro, but it never dawned on me to pull a motor out of there, actually. And I don't know why. We would go there and get lots of stuff. Like I got all the suspension stuff for my car. And I don't know why it didn't dawn on me, because there was probably back then, this was, I don't know, 1979 or 1980 probably. I don't know why it didn't dawn on me that I could have got a big block out of the junkyard. There was probably lots of them there, because I know that I got my sway bars and stuff I got it off a Z28. I also got it off a WS6 Trans Am. So I know that those things were there, but I stayed with my little 4-barrel, and it was only a 4-barrel because I put a 4-barrel on it, 350 in my Rally Sport. I do like walking into part stores, but whenever I walk in there, I just play dumb. Okay, let's go through the sequence, because I know that you only know a sequence. So I tell them the make, model, and year. The fun thing is when I go in and tell them that I'm running a blower that I just put on. It's a 4.8 liter with a Holley tunnel ram, or Holley high ram, with an M90 supercharger from a V6 on top of that with this pulley. And that's why I tell them, no, I need the belt this length. And then they can, you got to get the right kind of guy that can actually look it up in the belt book. They got to reach under the counter and get the belt book and go, okay, the belt you have is this length. Now, do you need it longer or shorter? That's the guy you want to talk to. What do you think of Eaton's TVS versus a Whipple twin screw? What you have to ask yourself is not what everybody's asking themselves, is which one is more efficient. And a twin screw supercharger is more efficient than a roots blower. The TVS is a hybrid roots because it has twisted lobes. It's evolving more towards a twin screw. It's not quite there. It's very good. So you have to ask yourself, not in absolute terms, in SAE engineering paper terms, which one of them is more efficient. What you have to ask yourself is, which one will do what I want it to do? If you put a TVS on there and you size it correctly, more than likely it's going to do what you want. And if that is less expensive, then that's probably a good way to go. What's an engine you haven't been wanting to toy, but you haven't been able to get your hands on? Well, there's a couple that I haven't been able to run. One is the RB25 that I have that I want to put on the dyno, and I haven't run that yet. I haven't run the 2.2 liter Chrysler yet. I want to run that. The other one I would really like to do is I'd like to put my little Sprint engine up there, my little 3-cylinder Sprint engine up there. So they sell them, and yes, for the metals. But how much? The thing that I was wondering, and my sons were asking me this because I told my son I think it's for the platinum that's inside the thing, but I don't. How much platinum is inside a catalytic converter? It can't be an ounce, is it? $40 for, so somebody's going to steal something for $40? '76 Cutlass, 4,374 pounds. Twin turbo 4.9 liter Ford. Oh, the 300. I don't think it needs twins. It probably one would be good. I put a set of Gen 5 LT4 crank rods pistons in a Gen 4 LS, and it's insane. So it all worked. I don't know why you'd put the pistons in there, because the piston is a direct injection piston, but if it works, it works. I know that we were looking at the rods, and when I was at Brian Tooley's place, the rods are nice. They're like a Gen 4 rod. Bob, Richard, what intake manifold would you recommend on a 6-liter LS with LS3 heads, F194, and shifting at 78 to 8,000? So if you're running it that high, you probably want some sort of short runner deal. Otherwise, I would recommend the factory LS3 or an LY6. But if you take a look at the LS3 intake manifold shootout, look at both the EFI and the carbureted versions, and then pick one of those, because those are all of those are all the short runner ones, like the Super Victors and the Snipers and all those. Most of those, especially like the Super Victor, for instance, and that Performance Designs, the Carbon TR intake or whatever that we ran, some of those short runner ones make more power than the factory ones, but it's past 6,000 RPM. It might even be past 6,500 RPM. But if you're going to 8 and that's where you're running it, then you might benefit from those. So take a look at the intake videos and you'll see you can pick one of those. So, Dean, all of the big blocks in 1979 went to New Zealand. I would like to do Nissan engines, especially the SR20. Bob doesn't need the fast intake. That would be a bad choice for that RPM range. And it would be a bad choice because it's really expensive and does nothing for you compared to a factory LS3 intake manifold. You got a lot of feral cats around there. So it had to weigh under 4,000 pounds, huh? You can get a 4.8 or 5.3 for $500 to $1,000. We can get them a lot less than that in our yards. 500 would probably be a realistic amount. Richard, are you aware that only North America still sells and uses trucks with gas motors? Everywhere else, it's diesel for light, medium, and heavy-duty trade vehicles. Wow. The Sprint that I had, I don't have it anymore, but the Sprint engine that I have out of my turbo Sprint was a turbo. It was an 87, 86. I think it's an 87. The car got stolen while I was having a cage built for it, because we had set some land speed records with it out at the Maxton Mile back in North Carolina. And we were getting ready to take it to Bonneville because the speed that we had run in the standing mile was already faster than the records were out at Bonneville for the class that it was running in. So we were putting a cage in it and the car got stolen. So I still have the motor and lots of parts for it. I have a complete motor, enough to build another motor. I've got forged pistons. I had custom rods done for it, a ported head, all kinds of stuff. Like I said, I'm not a tuner, so I'm not the guy you want tuning a 6.6 liter. Well, I have done decapped injectors. I didn't do them personally. They're actually the guys from Steve, my buddy Steve down at Powertrain, did it long ago, and we did it on a set of Bosch injectors, and they got them to flow. I want to say that they went up to like 86 pounds an hour or something. But when you're doing that, you have to make sure that you have a flow machine, because when you decap them, they all don't flow the same after you do that. $15,000 an ounce for rhodium, man. Michael says people will break your windows for 55 cents in your cup holder. On my vehicles, if they break the window, they usually leave money. LS with LT4 components, Illuminati cam, made 590 wheel horsepower. So that's an NA motor? Can you make a direct injected motor run like a diesel? I don't know why you would. I know there's no more records at Maxton. It was a long drive too. From when I went there, went with my buddy Jimmy from HP Performance when I was living in Las Vegas. I've set a few records at El Mirage also. Dan, so you want that Sprint 3-cylinder in the grandson? It has the turbo on it. And actually, before we took it out of the car, I was doing things to improve the fuel mileage because we wanted to get it above 50 miles per gallon. So I tried different fuel pressures. I tried some different injectors. We tried some 19-pound Bosch injectors in. I was trying to change the spray pattern, atomization. We did. I have luckily for me, the tires that are on it are very hard and low rolling resistance tires. They're very small to begin with, and you could buy all 4 of them for about $100. So it was kind of a nice deal. We did a lot of that stuff. I did a lot of aero stuff. I made belly pans in the front and the rear. I put an air to water intercooler on it in place of the air to air, which probably wasn't good for fuel mileage. I put a different bypass valve on it. I did a lot of cool things. Can we see 400 foot-pounds at 2,000 RPM out of a 2-liter? That's going to take a lot of boost, or a diesel. So Ed, I'm assuming you mean, do you mean Star Wars? Would you consider doing an LA 318? Yes, I would. I want to do a 318. I've never done one. I've only done, I did one 360 with an LA 360 from my van. And then now I've done a couple of testing with these 360 Magnums, but I'd like to do a 318. Should have shot the top on the Sprint. No, man, you can't. That's a classic. I've never run any testing on that 6.6 liter gas engine somebody was asking about. Give a guy with the 6.61 to know if you want to run it on the dyno. The 318 is the unsung hero of the OG Mopar days. I know that Uncle Tony loves the 318 and he thinks that it's the greatest motor ever built, but it's not. It was never a performance motor. The one thing I can say about the Dodge guys, and I think that they continue to do this, and I'm hoping that when they sat in their marketing meetings, that this was their like topic of discussion. I hope that they were looking at what the other guys were offering. And I went over this a little bit when I did the comparison between the 350 and the 351 and the 360. But if you look at their small blogs, like whenever the Ford and Chevy guys were doing, you know, a 302 and a 305, but the Dodge guys were doing a 318. So on the and on the slightly bigger versions, we had a 350, a 351, and then a 360. And I'm hoping that that was on purpose because they didn't offer the 327 for very long from Chevrolet. So really it became the 5-liter and then the 318 on a 5.2 liter. So did Dodge purposely make both of their small blocks bigger than the other ones so that Dodge guys could say my motor's bigger, or because they're, you know, Dodge guy's a bigger kind of guy. Dodge is making, you know, everybody else is looking at, you know, electric Hellcat or electric vehicles, and they're building Hellcats and stuff and Demons. So I'm hoping that that's has been part of their mentality the whole time. Like, oh, they have a 351 or a 350. Good. We're going to make a 360. Oh, that's cute. They have a 302 and a 305. Yeah, we're going to make a 318. I hope that they actually did that because I would think that that would be awesome. But that being said, the 318 has always been a very pedestrian motor. There's nothing special about it at all. And the other thing that gets thrown around there all the time is that the 318 is somehow better than a 360, and that's not anywhere near true. Yeah, I don't see nearly as many LA Dodges as I do there's lots of Magnums there. I can go find a 318 Magnum, you know, the 5.2 liter stuff. You can find a lot of those. The supercharger with a 255 and a 917 pulley combination. That's really fast. So did they actually have on the Diplomat, did they have a 4-barrel thermal quad on the 318, Dean? I thought that all of the 318s were 2 barrels, but that one kind of rings a bell though. The 340 was actually a pretty powerful motor back in the day, especially in 68 when they had the really big camshaft in it. In a stick car, I think it was probably pretty sporty. Kelsey had a 318, built a 318, 328 horsepower on the engine dyno and 15 miles per gallon. See, that's a good like daily driver combination. That works really good. Haven't figured out the green screen. I have. I've placed it right behind me. That's good enough. Actually, you can see all of shadows and all that stuff. So I have to go buy some other lighting for it. But I am working on some other stuff though, so which will be cool. Yeah, if you take a look at the test I did on the 302, the DZ302, and the 327 and the 350, you'll notice one thing. The same thing that you saw here on this supercharged 3800 versus the 5.9 Magnum. The bigger motor, like the LT1 350, made a lot more average power. They all made about the same peak power, but it made a lot more average power. So driving it around, it's just like a lot better. Yes, we did tests with the GT3582 turbos for max speeding. And I had the videos up. We showed that already. The police package, okay. The E58 package is actually and maybe they share the same designation, but the E58 was actually the 360 performance package that they use. I know that they used it in 78 on the truck, on the Little Red Express or whatever. DFA, those heads will certainly support that kind of power level. I haven't seen the new variable vane turbo. Yeah, probably pneumatic wrencher, probably a 598, I would imagine. That's not to say that they couldn't build that displacement, but a 598 would be normal. Yeah, the E58 was the designation for the 360, and that's actually the motor that I want to build. I want to build a version of that because I suspect that motor is going to be very close to the power output of a 346 pack motor. I don't think it'll quite make the same peak horsepower, but I think it's going to have a lot more average power. A Fireball 4-barrel. '78 Fury Police 440. Got cop tires on it, cop suspension. Oh, twin volute turbo. Okay. I've never even built the 318. Like I said, only 360s, but it's the same. You know, it spins and the pistons go up and down. The camshaft spins around, and all that stuff's timed correctly. It works pretty well. Dulcich likes the LA motors better and thinks ultimately that they have more potential because if you look at the head, a factory Magnum head is better than an LA head, but a factory Magnum head has limitations that the LA doesn't share. So he likes, and I think that, you know, a lot of it is what we grew up with. I think he grew up with doing the Magnum or doing the LA stuff. So that's what he likes. And we like what we like. There's nothing wrong with that. It's dark and we're wearing sunglasses. I think I threw a rod. Is that serious? You'll be fine. J heads, purple cam, 355 sure grip. Nice. Got all the Mopar code words, all the buzzwords. What do you think about the BMW Turbo Inline 6? I like them. I like BMWs. We had one. My wife had one, and they're really good cars. I would like a BMW Isetta, which would be awesome, or a 2002. Phoenix, take a look at the Big Bang motors that I did, the 4.8 and the 5.3, and even the 6-liter, all the Gen 3 stuff. If you have Gen 4 internals in it, it will be fine. I like the Gen 4 block better because it has the short connecting rods in it, or head studs in it. But we made lots of power with the Gen 3 stuff. We made 1,480 horsepower with the Gen 3 stuff on the 6-liter, and we made 12 and 1,300 horsepower with the 4.8 and the 5.3 stuff. And we made 50, 60, 70 runs at 1,000 horsepower with those. So we know that they'll do it. And two GT3582s are not going to make that kind of power. The 2002 TIIs did, right? They had mechanical injection. The valve angle is definitely better on the Dodge motor, but although you don't see that in terms of flow, though. There's lots of really good videos out there about free valve stuff. Yes, BMW I said it. The coolest one I ever saw was the guys from Cunningham BMW. They had an M series I said it that they did, and it was just, there was so much want there. Yeah, the 360 was bigger than the 340, but again, they didn't do other than that, like that 78 in that truck that was the fastest truck in certainly North America at the time. They didn't do, like the 340 was their performance motor. The 318 was not a performance motor, and really the 360 was already came in when they started phasing out performance. So it just didn't have a reputation of that. But the thing is, it's still bigger than the 340, and it has a good cylinder head on it. And that 78, I know, had the 340 cam in it. It had a 4-barrel induction system on it and a big 4-barrel on it. And they didn't even have cats on the 78 version. So we know that it had to make a lot of power. The little red truck, little red Express. That's right. The J, it also not just the fastest truck, it was the fastest, I think it was the fastest accelerating American vehicle at the time. So we know that it went pretty fast. I think the rec port heads, if you look at the trend that people went to on big block stuff, they went to a Roval. So they got rid of the corners of the rec port because that's dead space anyways. And unless you're trying to take advantage of those, but even then they would radius those if you want it to be that big, like a 385 airflow research head or something. Most of them, because you want to use all of the port surface, and in a true rectangular port, a factory one, if you make the corner squared, you're not using the corner section. I have seen the hammerhead heads. I haven't seen them up close, only online. Little Red Express versus GMC Cyclone. The GMC Cyclone happened long after 1978. Some Corinthian leather, yes. 1590s was as fast as that car, as the truck was. My Slant 6 is not dead. It's already it's alive. So, Kelsey, I'm not that familiar with the 318 heads. I know the 360J heads and the X heads for the performance stuff, but I don't know what the other production head is. What I'd like to do is take a stock 2-barrel, like I did with the 350 that I did long ago, is just take a stock 318 and run it and then start doing upgrades on it. I do like Integras. I would really like to have a low mileage original Integra Type R. That would be awesome. But I'm sure that those are $1 million now. I remember driving one when they first came out. The guys from, I was doing some driving at Willow Springs, the guys from Sport Combat Car, they had their GSR project car that they'd done a bunch of stuff to. They'd done wheels and tires and brakes and air intake and headers and all kinds of things to see if they could have that GSR be as fast as a Type R. And it wasn't. We drove the Type R around. We're like, oh, this is what it feels like when a manufacturer actually designs a car and not the aftermarket, because the Type R was just, it was like driving a dream. What transmission is in the Omni? You stated it was a 528 in your video, but I don't believe that's a production Chrysler transmission. I don't remember which one it is now. It is an upgraded transmission, because I know that John was telling me that I just got the center console from him, and he said, this is out, and the reason that it's out is because we changed the transmission, and now the linkage for the transmission doesn't, or the shifter doesn't fit where the column is. So it is the later, more desirable transmission, whatever that number is. I like B16s too. I really liked I had a Del Sol that I raced in Motorola Cup and then in US Touring Car that I loved and eventually sold. And the guy did a case series swap and ran it at Bonneville. And he also owns my 99 Civic Si, which is another car that I love. I think that they look like little BMWs, which is why I liked it so much. And it was a great little car, especially when it had boost. It was a lot of fun. Timeout Tom, that's your new nickname. Honda's open deck for crew for cracking sleeves. In the whole time I've ever run Hondas, which is a lot, we've never cracked a sleeve in one. We endurance raced them. We never hurt rods. All of the myths about those are just silly. I ran 25 pounds of boost on the open decks. All of that worked just fine. I was actually thinking about putting the Barra engine in the Fox. Andrew King, thank you very much. Get the Nova done for the Chevy guys. There's no guarantee that it'll get a Chevy engine in it though. I had an NSX, also had a 91, and I really, really liked it. And the guys from HP Performance turbocharged it for me, and it was really fun. Yeah, they're letting me know. They're probably letting me know it's dinner time. Yeah, the Mazda MX-6 and the 626 also. I think it was the fastest vehicle in 78. 3800 would be cool to go in something. I'm just trying to figure out what I guess I could use. I could use the 5-speed from a 3.8 liter Camaro, right? The only updates on the 2.2 are that I might have a ported head being shipped to me. Also, David Vizard has the head that I shipped to him, and I should be heading down before too long to take the motor out of the GLH. I've never tested an electronic wastegate. I would like to, though, and I just need to get with Marty over there at TurboSmart. Did you ever do an H to B swap in your Honda days? So you mean replace the H series with a B series, or replace the B series with an H series? I think the electronic wastegates probably are a lot. Oh, replace an H series with a B series. H series with a B series trans. No, just the transmission. Oh, a B series transmission with an H. I've never done that. I don't have much experience with H series motors. H to B is an H engine with an adapter for a B series trans. Okay, well, that's all new stuff to me. Ooh, a Merkur XR4 Ti. Very cool cars. Except they need the Cosworth motor in them, though. The 3800 in a rear-wheel drive with that rear-wheel drive T5. But how much power will that T5 from the Camaro withstand? Will it break if we try to drag race it? A Coyote swap? No, that's not going to happen. Wish this guy tell me who made his 589 for him so I can find parts. See, that's why I come here. I come here to learn. The only H series stuff that I did was, I think, with Oscar Jackson when he was putting the superchargers on the Preludes and stuff. Yes, a Cosworth Sierra. Those are cool. The T5. So is the T5 in the Camaro as strong as the T5 in the Mustang, in like a Fox Mustang? Ultra Bell might make an adapter for the Turbo 400 for the 3.8. That would be kind of cool if I could put a Turbo 350 or a Turbo 400 or something in the behind the, I would have a turbocharged 3800. A T5 Mustang, I know for a fact is not glass in a Fox Mustang, because I drove mine for 85,000 miles with a blower with all kinds of different cylinder heads and camshafts. I road raced it all the time, set land speed records with it, took it out to Fort Stockton. We took that trans out. I ran it in not in World Challenge, but we ran it in Bridgestone Supercar. So shifted properly, it lasted a long time. I didn't ever punch the dashboard or break the shifter off because I was drag racing it, but it went through, a million shifts though. I do have a T56 trans sitting in my shop or in my storage. Charles, I'm not saying people didn't break them. I've seen people break a lot of them, but like I said, I didn't ever break one. And when we road race them, and we have a weekend of road racing, we shift way more times than a guy that's out drag racing it does. Mine was an 88 5-liter. Mine is an 88 5-liter. Some people can break a crowbar in a sandbox. That's right. My dad used to tell us we would break ball bearings with a rubber hammer. I think that's what he used to say. Tom, you're absolutely right. It needs a Junkyard 5.3 with an M122 GT500 blower. The Atlas would be a good choice too. But again, that's a specific trans. Well, no, now that I have the adapter, I can put anything I want in there, right? Okay, one more minute. Fox body needs the Atlas. That's not going to happen. Definitely 8 valve on the GLH. No 3.5 EcoBoost stuff on the engine dyno, only on the chassis dyno. No, you're probably right. We don't shift as much as they do in Fast and the Furious. Yeah, an automatic is definitely the way to go. If you're, especially if you're drag racing and you want repeatability, then an automatic is definitely the way to go. Plus, I can put a Turbo 350 with a shift kit on it. Are the shift kits still $29 like they used to be? And you'll notice my camera is not zooming in and zooming out anymore. I downloaded an app and got rid of the autofocus. I did have Weber side draft cars on my 260Z. They're $49 now. Yeah, what's with all the likes here? Come on. Shift kit $35, see? All right, guys, I got to get going. Thank you all for showing up. Hopefully you've checked out the video on the 5.9 liter versus the 3800. I got to order a camshaft now for the 3800, and I can put LS or other kind of beehive springs on it, so we'll be able to run, you know, more RPM and more boost and all that. Try a couple of intake manifolds, and then hopefully I want to get the 4200 running again. And then Tom, you're right, I need to take a look at LS blower adapter thing that it's still sitting in the box, but I promise I will get to it. Thank you guys all for showing up. I will see you all tomorrow.